Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Phil Donahue. Welcome to the show. It's nice to see you.
Thank you, George.
This film, Body of War, is going to generate an awful lot of conversation, without a doubt. For people who haven't had a chance to see it yet, in your words, tell them what it's about.
Body of War looks at the life of Thomas Young, a 24-year-old American soldier in Iraq who was there 5 days, took a bullet here in the collarbone, right below the collarbone. The bullet exited T4 on the spine, which anatomists, well, they'll tell you where it is. It's between the shoulder blades, and so he's paralyzed from the waist down. And this is a very close-up look at the harm in harm's way. We thought Americans should see this.
It's a raw, open look at life, the life of a war veteran in a country that, at least in recent memory, wants to celebrate their war veterans, and you see things you've never seen before.
Well,
even a quadriplegic, you don't know, like
paraplegic, but
or paraplegic, yeah.
But there are quads too.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, and I thought Americans should see this. You know, if you're going to go to war, see the pain, see the sacrifice. Don't sanitize the war. I mean, this is page 1 of journalism, I think.
Right.
The majority of American people now believe that the Iraq War was a mistake.
Yeah, I think the latest stat was 3 out of 10, right?
It took us 3,500 dead people to get here, to come to this conclusion. And now, we got in 3 minutes, and we're going to take 30 years to get out. How many more people are going to die? Our senator from Nebraska asked that of General Petraeus recently during the hearing. How many more are we going to allow to die in this never-ending... the American experience right now is a very, very troubled one. Our nation it really doesn't know. We spend $500 billion a year on things that go boom. $500 million a year on, and 19 guys with box cutters brought us to our knees. You can't fight this with an aircraft carrier. George Bush took this Congress and the whole nation right into the sword. But we can never let this happen again.
He couldn't have done that unless the media just rolled over for him. We sort of laughed, and having you on the show was exciting because I used to watch your show as a kid, and you going through the audience and all that. But your show was not what those shows are now. I think Geraldo actually ruined it for everybody because he went on and did that stupid kind of pick-a-fight TV where you didn't learn. And then Geraldo was the natural extension to this shit that's Bill O'Reilly and even the so-called liberals who are on TV. This is the same crap. It's theater, as Jon Stewart said when he was on Crossfire. And to me, this is the media who allowed, because politicians will always try to get away with what they get away with.
Absolutely so.
Their job isn't for the people. They never have been for the people.
Right. But it's important to remember, George, how really enraged the American population was. Imagine those bastards knocked down our towers. Those, after we were the last remaining superpower. Really, we were like a giant with a tack in our shoe. Stomping around the playground in rage. And the American people joined in that. I mean, I knew people in 2001 after 9/11 who wanted to bomb somebody. Yeah. And the press, the mainstream press, bought this. The Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Boston Globe, pick a papers, Tribune, Chicago, Los Angeles Times, go, 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 war, war, war. To stand up at that time as a United States senator or a congressman and say no was a tremendous act of moral courage that has been largely forgotten by a nation that's still struggling to figure out how we're going to get out of this. How do we reach across this divide to the over 1 billion Muslims who make up a worldwide community of people of faith to whom we should be reaching out rather than lashing out?
The American people who voted knew this and elected this guy.
But remember, he scared them to death, George. If you don't know that...
The populace's responsibility to sort of prepare themselves,
and I would agree, yeah. But You know, if you watch this debate in the House, Saddam is coming, Saddam has more weapons than Hitler had, Saddam is a Hitler, Saddam is worse than Saddam, he's outside your window, he's under your bed, and the whole nation said, get him!
Yeah.
And here we are. In the Constitution, we have clauses in the Constitution which have been constructed to restrain this kind of hysteria, to force people to think before they go to war. Mm-hmm. It's the most important document, feature of our Constitution.
You went on Bill O'Reilly's show and got into it.
Yeah, yes, we did. Well, you know, he does this because it's good for ratings. You know, if people are going across the dial and you're shouting in my face, they're going, what the hell is this? Mm-hmm. And then you get a bigger audience, you get more ratings, and you stay on television. Mm-hmm. I'll speak for myself. In the States, you are rewarded by the size of the audience you draw. Mm-hmm. And when your nation is rolling out to war, certainly as we've learned here, people don't want to hear dissent. They don't want to hear a scold. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't support the troops. You're unpatriotic. You're a wimp. It just seems to me that it would be helpful for the American patriot now. And by the way, dissenters are patriots, and you don't have democracy if you don't have dissent. Mm-hmm. It would be useful now for all of us to stop and say, if we had obeyed the United States Constitution, this never would have happened. The Constitution of my nation says only Congress can declare war. Article 1, Section 8. James Madison, don't give one man all this power. It's too much of a temptation. Yeah. And he was right. The framers were right. That's why you want Congress to declare war, not one president who wants to get on his horse and has dreams of statues at some time in the future. And Congress, not wanting to be involved in a war that goes wrong, goes like this. So here you are, Mr. President, whatever you think. Yeah. And then if it goes bad, they can say, well, we thought we didn't mean... And it's an attempt to cover themselves for the next election.
In this movie, you have there's this thing that keeps cutting back, which I find really, it's very entertaining, but it's also very sad, interesting, is the vote. All the names of the politicians who said, go for it. Yes. And you've sort of laid it out on them. But who is the movie for? Like the mothers and the Iraq veterans, they know about this already.
They sure do.
Who did you make this movie? It's your own money. Who paid for this film, right?
I honestly made it for the millions and millions of Americans who watched this president invade a country that had nothing to do with 9/11, lied about weapons of mass destruction, swaggered before the camera to say, bring it on, and sent over 130,000 young men and women to Iraq. And these Americans stood mute. I think this is a civics lesson. I think it reminds Americans of how grateful they should be.
Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure, George. Thanks.
The movie is called Body War. Check it out. Picture that Phil Donahue co-produced. Really interesting movie. Thanks a lot for coming in. Yeah, we'll be right back.